Hi guys, it's Kirsten over at Julep Tile Company, and today I want to talk to you about how to calculate square footage for your tile installation. So I know most of us don't do kitchen or bathroom renovations every day, and so the thought of calculating any of this seems a little overwhelming. So I want to make sure to teach you the most easy way that I know possible to calculate your square footage. So let's get started. So what you'll need before we get into this is a tape measure, pen and paper, and internet access. So I wasn't a math major, I was an art major in ceramics, and so math is not my strong suit. So what I'm going to show you is how to use an online square footage calculator rather than trying to do all the math yourself. So we'll keep going here. So the first thing you want to do is begin breaking up your backsplash area into sections. So some backsplashes are just one big rectangle, but more often than not, they have maybe, like in this photo here, a little section under the window and, a section over the stove and several different areas that are different shapes. So it doesn't really matter how you do it, just as long as you cover all of the area that will need tile and also make sure you don't overlap areas. And I'll go through this in an example for you to hopefully make this really easy. But once you have each section, all you need to do is measure the height and the width and then write it down. And you'll see I kind of labeled each section just to make sure I keep it very clear. And the other thing is sometimes you guys may not have, you may have walls with studs on them and that's it. So if you have drawings, you can go from those and get the measurements off of the drawings. So whatever you have, just kind of work around where you're at. So this is the kitchen we're going to use. If anybody's curious, this is our damask pattern in cream and new satin white. So this was a good kind of straight on shot so that I can kind of illustrate what I'm talking about by breaking this into sections. So I would start here by doing this first section on the left. So you kind of want to get like the biggest square or rectangle you can. And as these arrows show for section A, you'd want to measure the up and down arrow is your height, and then the across arrow would be your width, and then you'd want to write it down. And then you'd keep moving your way across. So this would be section B. And I know sometimes you guys might have, here I'll go back so you can see this, although this tile probably goes up under the hood, but if you have strange areas like that arch, if that was something you only needed tile for inside the arch, sometimes I would just go ahead and measure the whole rectangle, like this whole area, and just in your mind understand like, hey, I may have a little bit extra to play with over here because I overestimated on section B. So sometimes it's a little bit more complicated, but for the most part, you're going to have a bunch of squares or rectangles that you're going to be breaking into sections and then adding together. So for section B, go ahead and measure the height and width, and then the same for section C, and then you've really got this backsplash pretty well covered at that point, right? So then, because I like writing everything down in my little green notebook, I went ahead and wrote all of this down. So this is what your notes might look like. So for section A, I measured our height was 18 inches, our width was 36, and then we need to go and calculate what our square feet is going to be for that section. And so you'll see I have all my measurements for section A, B, and C. And then we'll go over and start calculating the square footage. So one that I like to use is Calculator Soup. So if you just Google this URL is a little complicated, but if you just Google square footage calculator Soup, it's one I like. You don't have to use this one, but it just is pretty basic and straightforward. So this is the page you'll get to. You'll want to change if you're doing it in inches. I usually measure in inches because you're not converting feet to inches and back again. So for that section A, I think my length or height was 18 inches. My width was 36, and I've got these correct. So I just hit calculate, and then it gives me a nice answer down below, and I don't have to do any math. So let's go back here. And so there I can put in my number right here. My square feet is 4.5, and I've gone ahead and done each one. So if you want to pause this video, you can pause it and then come on back. Once you have the square feet for each section, then you would just add, so 4.5 plus 13 plus 4.5 again, and you get your total here of 22. So that gives you what your actual square footage is. So because with tile, you obviously have to cut around the edges, you need to allow a little bit extra. If you break a tile or, who knows what happens, but generally speaking, you need to order a little bit of overage. So let's talk about that for a minute. So we recommend a minimum of 10 to 15%. Sometimes that's enough and sometimes it's not. If you have, it seems strange, but a smaller space, like if you're just ordering tile for, you're going to cut tile down to put over your stove, I would recommend ordering more overage, because sometimes 10% is like not even a square foot. It's not a lot because the area is so small. And likewise with complicated installation, so if you have a lot of windows to cut around, a lot of corners, outlets, lots of things like that, even if it's a bigger backsplash, you might want to order more than 10 to 15%. So I don't want to sound like I'm self-serving, with the Tile Council over here and telling you, you need 50% overage, because I don't want you to order too much. But I would err on the side of ordering a little bit more than you think, only because if you have to order more later, sometimes it doesn't always match perfectly, just because it is very much a handmade product. And also your lead time, it'll be a wait, to get more made, which might slow down your project. So anyway, what we always recommend is to ask your installer for his or her recommendation. Since they're the one installing it, they understand how complicated things are. We always defer to them to kind of help you make the final decision. So let's go back to our calculations here. We have to do a little bit of math. I apologize here right at the end. So we've got our total square feet right here is 22. So if I was going to do, say, 20%, I would take 22 times 1.2 and then get 26.4 square feet. And we do only sell by the whole square foot, so you'd have to decide, am I comfortable with 26 or do I want to round up to 27? And then that would be your final answer. And I'm sure a lot of you are very good at math. For those of us who aren't so math inclined, I did put this down here to make it a little bit easier. 10% overage, you multiply by 1.1. 15% is 1.15, and so on. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of extra information there, just to get you to the final number. So hopefully that's helpful. If you guys have any questions, please let us know. And we're always happy to help however we can. And yeah, thanks for watching.